before we begin, I will ask the town manager to read the disclaimer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a reminder to everyone before we get to the agenda, as you just heard, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the town's website and YouTube channel. There will be a public comment period at the outset of the meeting. And in addition to that, we will allow for comments after the council has had a chance to discuss agenda items that are labeled public hearing on the agenda that was distributed by the town. We ask that audience members please hold questions or comments until you've been called on, and you can use the raise hand feature if you'd like to speak. I'm also going to make sure that the chat function works so that you can chat with me directly if you have any questions or comments. Before you do make any comments, please state your name and street that you live on for records keeping purposes. And finally, although we've instituted some additional security measures, if for whatever reason this meeting gets interrupted, we'll immediately end the Zoom meeting and distribute instructions on how to rejoin via town email. With that, Mr. Mayor, I will turn it back over to you.
And you're going to now proceed to disable the chat, correct?
That's right, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we will start with our public comment period. If any resident or guest has a question or comment, please indicate to the town manager and he will call on you. Okay, I guess we have no comments at this time. So we will now move to the approval of the agenda. And I believe the council president has a question of the town attorney to start. So I leave it to you, Mr. President.
Right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ron, with regards to the agenda, I am concerned that we have not given sufficient advance notice of this meeting to residents. Are there any issues with us proceeding, or do you have some advice and guidance to give us? Perhaps we can split what we're going to be talking about.
Sure. So, Mr. President, is the concern about the agenda or the date itself?
The final agenda and all of the attachments and material were not posted until 5:30 this afternoon.
Okay.
But there was a draft agenda in the town journal.
I'm sorry, the agenda was posted on the in the town journal.
Yeah, and I would say the public has notice of our meeting schedule. So there has been notice that there'll be a meeting tonight. So the council can continue. The Open Meetings Act requires an agenda to be provided. It doesn't require that every single item that possibly will be discussed be on the agenda. Now I'm looking to remind myself what things are up for public hearing tonight.
There's
The ordinance.
There's an ordinance.
Right, which has been previously introduced, and at the time of introduction, I believe we stated that it would be subject to a public hearing at today's meeting. I think sufficient notice has been provided. However, there's a difference between what the council thinks is appropriate legally and politically. If from a policy perspective, the council wants to provide more notice for one or more items, the council could certainly do so. But I think we do have sufficient public notice based on the facts.
Okay, thank you, sir. So with that in mind, Mr. President, do you wish to make a motion regarding the agenda?
So I move that we accept the agenda as presented, but this is an opportunity for my colleagues to voice any concerns about any particular agenda items.
Is there a second on that?
A second.
I see Heller. Okay, now So to the council, are there any particular items that you feel that would be best deferred because of the fact that the Zoom and the materials were not put out in advance, even though, as the town attorney points out, anyone that had been interested could have requested it. But so the question is, on the motion, are you comfortable with proceeding with the full agenda?
Mhm.
So
Yes, we have a second.
if there's any discussion?
Quick,
Hearing none, all those in favor?
sorry, quick question, Jeffrey and
Yeah.
Steve.
Mhm.
I think, Steve, you're referring to, by the way, happy New Year, everyone. Good to see everyone.
Thank you.
We jumped straight into the meeting. I was a few minutes late. And thank you to all for your kind end of the year gifts. On this issue, Steve, I think, are you referring to the setback ordinance in particular, that you're wondering if the town has had sufficient engagement with that? Is that right? Is that the one you're referring to?
Yes, I think that's potentially the most contentious topic, and I'm not. I mean, we've talked about it I wrote an article in the town journal.
Yeah.
We've introduced it in Open Town Forum. We've listed that we'd be talking about it in the town journal.
And today,
I think it's okay.
are we adopting it today?
I think
Possibly, yes. Oh, sorry.
possibly, yes.
Possibly,
That's
yes.
what's on there. So
I have a
right now
quick,
we're discussing the motion, but I would like to also ask Councilmember Kumar, didn't you want to make an amendment to the agenda to add something?
yes, so there's
Okay,
the other
so
thing
why
I
don't
wanted to,
So,
yeah.
So why don't we, if there's no further discussion, let's pass this motion and then you can make an amendment.
Sure.
Or you can-
I
or
just
you can
wanted to
make-
ask Steve
or
if
you want
that's
to
what
make the
you
amendment
refer to.
now?
Yeah,
Do you want to make the amendment now?
I can make the amendment now. I think,
Yes, please.
the proposed amendment is to add the tree ordinance code
The
for introduction of the tree ordinance
introduction.
code.
Okay, so your amendment is to add the introduction of the tree ordinance. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Circo seconded. Okay, so is there discussion on the amendment to add the introduction of the tree ordinance? This is not the passage of it. This is just the introduction.
To add it to the agenda, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
background on this is that the PNRC chair had requested that it be moved to the February agenda, the introduction. And the reason for that was a change I had suggested at our work session and also to the PNRC to do with when a permit application goes to council versus goes to the mayor. And the committee accepts generally what I'm proposing, but they have not yet finally decided on what the standard sum of the inches of diameter should be. So that's why they wanted till February so they could sort that out. The issue is whether we could basically write the ordinance so that it has some of the diameter language in it, putting an X in for the number and then just do the number when we get the recommendation from PNRC. I don't know if that constitutes a major change or not. I can ask that of our town attorney.
Yeah, no, I don't think that would be a substantive change if the draft were to provide a blank, because that would afford the public an opportunity to comment on what the appropriate measurement should be, and there wouldn't be any surprises that measurements under consideration.
All right. In that case, I've got no objection to the introduction at this time.
Okay, is there further discussion on the amendment to add the introduction? Hearing none, all those in favor? I see everybody voted yes. Thank you. And now on the original motion on the agenda as amended, is there further discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. And we will add that introduction right after the public hearing on the ARPA resolution. And so now we will move to consideration of the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Move that we approve the consent agenda.
I see Barnes, I see
Approved.
Kumar
Second.
seconding it. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much. The next item is the building administrator's report. Mr. Lohmeyer.
Good evening. At 4501 Cumberland and also at 4503 Cumberland, those projects, the existing older dental office is being removed and 2 new houses are going to be built on those 2 recorded lots. The town's permit was issued for both lots on December 10th. Construction has not begun yet or the demolition, so I imagine that'll start taking place anytime after the weather breaks. A building permit was issued at 4900 Cumberland Avenue to remove a deck and add an existing to the existing house. At 4506 Trent Street, the county has received plans to demolish the existing house and add a new house to it. The town has reviewed the concept plan and given their comments to the property owner. The county has issued a sediment control permit, but they have not issued a demolition and building permit yet, so no plans have been submitted to the town. And a permit was issued on November 16th for 5605 Warwick to add a covered porch to the rear of the existing house. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Council President Circo, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Barr.
I have no questions. Thank you. And thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Councilmember Heller. Do you have any questions?
No, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kumar.
None. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Councilmember Rovak.
I was just wondering, like, for these building permits that go out, I know there was a question that Mr. Berry raised about the driveway for 4519 Cumberland, and I was just wondering who checks up on those things as they're happening and make sure that they stay within code?
Wayne Fowler, the code enforcement officer, and I ride by periodically and check on it. But basically, the wall check and the height survey that they provided satisfies the town's requirements. So the rest of the issues are basically the county's issues. Is there something particular you're concerned about?
I think there was concern about the cut of the driveway and how wide it was versus what our town code is.
Wayne Fowler, before they poured the driveway, checked the dimensions and confirmed that they meet the town's detail for a driveway apron. So that's been checked before they poured the concrete.
Okay, and then also, but so there was no variance that was needed for that driveway.
Well, the wall check didn't show any need for a variance, so everything met the town code and the building permit.
Okay, and then I know that like a stipulation of their building permit was that they were going to be consulting a landscape architect that had, some knowledge about stormwater management and putting in landscaping that will help eat up some of the water. And it doesn't appear that there has been put much landscaping there at that house. Like, who watches for that?
Well, the landscaping won't go in until all the construction's done, which will probably take place in the spring because it's too cold now. but I believe that would be, Dr. Feather would be looking at that.
And to see like what they do in order to approve or, you know, to be granted the final building permit, because they do have like sod and all sorts of things in right now.
Councilor Rovak.
I'm sorry, I don't.
Councilor
Go ahead.
Rovak, we can, those questions can be put, the town manager can put those questions to the Dr. Feather.
Okay, we
So if
can
you
take it
wanna-
off. And I just didn't know if like, you know, once we get these initial building requests and like we kind of go through these permits that are out there, you know, I just want to make sure that we're following up on what we have for our end of it.
Right. Well, those are excellent questions. And if Dr. Feather was here, he would answer. But in the meantime, if you want to write out your questions and send them to Matt, and he'll get them to Feather, and then Matt can also distribute the answers to anyone of your constituents that you would like to.
Yes, there are some constituents of concern on Little Cumberland.
And just generally speaking, Councilmember Rovak, we do have a checklist, so we hold the bond until those permit requirements are met. And then we sign off on the permit and release the bonds and finalize it. That's just generally speaking.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not too late.
That's why we have this on the agenda every month. So,
Awesome.
did
Thank
you
you.
have any other questions?
Yeah, the house on Trent that you guys had said had applied for a building permit of like a demolition. And you had mentioned that they had consulted with us initially, or the town initially, to make sure that the plans were kind of in code, like, you know, works within our code. So does that now like qualify as what our new code is as far as stormwater management? Or will they need to come back before us as a town council prior to Montgomery County issuing their building permit?
The new code ordinance will be in effect for any demolitions moving forward. So that would include, I think it's 50. I think somebody from 5506 Trent had reached out to us in December. So yeah, so to answer your question, yes, if they go forward with the demolition at that property, the new stormwater ordinance would be in effect there.
Okay, great, thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, Doug, I think I cut you off. Were you saying something before?
No, I'm fine. That's okay.
Okay,
No, you answered
sorry.
the question.
Sometimes I get unnecessarily aggressive. Okay, the next item, public hearing motion to approve of amendments to the Parks and Natural Resources Committee Charter as recommended by the Parks and Natural Resources Committee. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, so we discussed these at the latest council work session. The Parks and Natural Resources Committee, as they were evaluating and going about their business, wanted to update their very generic charter to be reflective of the work that they do work on and have reported back to the council. They made a couple of slight changes from the version that was before the council at the work session in December, sort of to address some of the concerns that were brought up, basically to make it broader at a charter level. For example, instead of having a provision that they provide budget recommendations for a kid appropriate park, the language was changed to provide relevant budget recommendations and requests. So it's a higher level charter document that is now reflective of the work that the committee does and more or less that the council tacitly approved at the work session.
Okay, thank you. Council President Circo, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barr.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just, for the background, I explained what our concerns were at the PNRC meeting on December 22nd, and Kristen modified the charter in the way that Matt has described, so I'm now quite happy with it myself, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Council Member Heller.
No, if Robin's happy, I'm happy.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kumar.
If Debbie's happy, I'm happy.
Like that.
Oh, okay. She's really. Debbie, let's record that. Okay, and next, Council Member Rovak, do you have any questions?
If Kabir is happy, I'm happy.
Oh, okay. We're really starting the year off great. Mr. Town Manager, are there any comments or questions from residents or guests?
No, not at this time.
Okay, Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
I move that we accept the PNRC charter as revised by the chair and now presented to the council.
Is there a second?
Second.
I see Kumar, Councilor Kumar. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Everybody voted yes. Okay, the next item. Public hearing motion to adopt ordinance 11-21-2, an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances to amend and clarify the exemptions from setbacks for projections. Mr. Town Manager.
Yeah, so this is probably the biggest discussion item I would guess on the agenda tonight. We've discussed this at work sessions previously. In summary, this amendment to the Code of Ordinances would simplify the exceptions for setbacks as it pertains to projections. So the code as it is currently allows certain projections in the front and rear of the properties for things like decks and balconies and steps and stairs, etc. This would eliminate those exceptions so that each building has a simple buildable area on each lot, and no more exceptions, so that if somebody wanted to build those types of structures onto their house in a way that encroached into the setback, a variance would need to be sought, or the design of the house would need to be built in a way that it conformed with our setbacks as written. I prepared a short little write-up of notes for you all that kind of summarized the discussion that had taken place during the work sessions where this was discussed. But I think that more or less covers it.
Okay, thank you. Council President Circo, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Matt, for that summary. I certainly support this initiative, but I recall that there was a council consideration of a somewhat similar proposal several years ago that would have counted half the area under such projections. And that did not have support of the council at the time. And even though I think we could legally push forward with this, I recommend, or my inclination is that we reschedule the vote on this to next month.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any other
That's it. Thank you.
question? Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barr.
Well, there's no recommendation actually that we move it to next month. I mean, I'll just say what I've said at the work session, which is what this does is change our default. It doesn't actually necessarily change what's built, because builders and owners can come in with variances for projections now and can have therefore the same style and size of house. But now we individually examine those variances in a way we couldn't do previously. That is the nature of the difference. So I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Heller.
Question really for Steve. Steve, do you want to go back and talk about this at a work session to, so we better understand it, or add or subtract from it, or debate it a little more?
I don't think we need to debate it further. And I think Robin is correct that although this changes some of the thresholds for council consideration of the building permit, it doesn't inherently limit what builders can do. It just changes where they have to request a variance. My concern is just that this is I perceive this as a fairly significant change. And this has been over COVID-19 and the holidays. I'm just concerned that residents have not had sufficient time to consider it and weigh in. Now, we might find that we delay it a month and we get no comments, and that's okay. Then we can just proceed.
I'm good.
Did you have any other questions?
Steve, do you suggest sharing it with any of the builders who regularly build here to get a reaction from them, or is that more than what you want to do?
That was a step that I was not thinking of taking. If you advocate that, maybe that is something we should talk about at a work session.
Well, let's continue to go through the council and have the hearing, and then you can discuss, you can make a decision. Councilor Heller, did you have any other questions?
No,
Thank
I
you.
think probably Steve's right.
Thank you. Councilmember Kumar, do you have any questions?
Once again, I completely agree with Debbie.
I like this.
Steve, I appreciate you bringing this up. I do agree that I think within the council, we've discussed this, but coming at this fresh first Monday of Jan, coming out of the holiday season and Omicron, and it might be good to give the town at least a couple of more weeks to react to it. And you might be right, we may end up in the same place we are now, but it might be the right thing to do. Legally, I think we have given notice, as Ron explained, we've published in the town journal, but just sort of being cognizant that people don't always pay attention coming to the end of the calendar year. And so just give them a little bit more time. I think that's sensible.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Rovak.
Well, I think that my only concern is that, if we do approve this, and therefore, we look for people, like Robin says, it's not necessarily going to stop how things are being built. It's just going to need variances that are sought after. My concern there is that we already, have kind of struggled on what to approve for a variance or not a variance, and what becomes a good reason to approve one thing versus the other. And so it makes me it gives me pause to think that, I wouldn't want to be or have the town considered to be subjective as far as who we're handing variances out to versus not, when I think that, with this kind of situation, we're just going to have more of that. And, I'm not sure that we can get around it, but that just gives me some concern.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated a desire to speak on this?
No, nobody from the public has,
Okay.
other
I
than
think the
perhaps our
town
town attorney.
attorney wants to weigh in.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to note that if the ordinance is not adopted tonight, it should be reintroduced, because that charter provision provides ordinances need to be adopted 6 days and no later than 60 days after they're introduced. So with the introduction in November, we need to reintroduce tonight.
Okay, thank you very much for that important fact. So with that fact in mind, Council President Circo, did you wish to make an introduction or a motion? I guess the council doesn't need to vote it. It could be the same motion, correct, Mr. Town Attorney? Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. President, are you prepared to make a motion? And you are muted. Okay,
Right, so I move that we reintroduce the motion as stipulated.
Second.
you mean reintroduce the
Ordinance.
the ordinance, the legislation, whatever. Yeah.
Thank you. The ordinance as.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and Councilor Kumar seconded. Is there discussion?
Yeah, I'll just ask, how are we going to use the extra time to make sure the community is better informed about this ordinance?
What would your proposal be, Mr. President?
I mean, I think the bottom line is we need to make sure that the advance notice of the council meeting goes out at least 72 hours prior to the meeting.
Well,
And I could do another article in the town journal. Would that be a good idea?
I think it would be a good idea, yeah.
Why not?
and also, Matt, we can have our town manager put a reminder about that every Friday.
That'd be great.
Sure.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. Is there further discussion on the introduction, reintroduction? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Councilor Rovak voted against that.
I actually didn't. Sorry, I'm on a
Oh.
little bit of a
Oh, yeah.
delay.
Well, there's no reason to vote against it because you want it to be considered, yeah. Okay, so it passed unanimously. The next item is to introduce motion to introduce ordinance 12-12-1, an ordinance to regulate the construction of accessory dwelling units. Mr. Town Manager.
Yeah, I'll keep this brief. This is just introducing the proposed legislation that was before the council at the December work session. And then if it's introduced tonight, we'd have the public hearing and adoption at the February meeting. Ron, just to clarify, I can't remember offhand, is this one where you had made any slight changes to it?
So in the projections ordinance, I added a statement. I sent a copy to the county council because we have to do so under state law. We got to give the county council an opportunity to respond and comment on building regulations. The county council sent us an email acknowledging receipt and indicating they had no comments. And then on the ADU ordinance, I think I just added the fact that it was discussed at the December meeting, but no substantive changes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Council President Circa, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Member Barr.
No questions.
Thank you. Councilor Heller.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kumar.
No questions.
And now Councilor Rovak.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Council President Circa, you prepared to introduce this?
Yes, thank you. I move that we introduce ordinance 12-12-1 to regulate the construction of accessory dwelling units.
Thank you. Is there a second? I see Heller first. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
I think it was unanimous. And now, just like the Supreme Court, who is going to be assigned to write the article for the journal? And it could be Matt.
I like that.
Okay, I'll assign.
It's not
Maybe
fair.
we should institutionalize these assignments. Maybe it should be the
Simple enough. I
president
can-
makes
I
the
can write.
assignment. Or maybe the person in the majority, the senior member in the majority. So that would be, I think, isn't Steve the senior member too? Yeah. So is that all right with you, Mr. President?
But I'm going to write the article on the
I'll write it, Steve. It's a
Projections.
thrilling topic. So,
Thank you, Robin.
Okay, and we're gonna have Matt write the ADU one.
no, I was going to write the ADU one.
Oh, you're at the ADU. Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you. The next item, public hearing motion to adopt a resolution establishing that ARPA funds will be budgeted for expenditure as part of the town's annual budget process as recommended by the town budget committee. Mr. Town Manager.
Yeah, again, this is relatively straightforward and something we discussed at the last work session after presentation from the budget committee. Essentially just establishes exactly what it says, that there's no special way that these funds are going to be spent, but that they'll be appropriated and spent according to the town's regular budgeting process and as the town sets its annual budget.
And before I take questions, I would like to add that I am very proud that this council sees fit to enact this type of policy, because I continue to read articles about, and I have another article I think that I'm going to be sending to all of you to see that you're doing. This is really good governance. Mr. President, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Barr.
Yeah, it's really a question of Matt, which is, are you going to ask committee chairs to put in requests indicating if they're requesting ARPA dollars when they put in their annual budgets? And if so, would it be a good idea to give them this resolution if we pass this resolution?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I guess maybe that's the next step in how we talk about in terms of soliciting and determining what we want to spend the money on. I don't know if you want to, for example, open the floodgates and take any and all requests, or limit it to certain types of projects. But certainly, yeah, I mean, that is part of our regular budget process. So to your point, if that's the case, then that makes sense that would be extended to this.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Heller, do you have any questions?
No, I think if I understand this right, I don't like the idea of opening the floodgates, though, and letting everybody, put in their 2 cents. I think if it comes through committee chairs in a normal budgetary process, I think that's the way it should be looked at. So if I've just restated the obvious, excuse me.
Well, that's actually the protocol that we encourage, is that committees take votes on recommendations, and that it not just be from a chair. So
Okay.
I'm glad you pointed that out, and I'm sure Matt, we are continuing to brief chairs on the protocols, and so we will make sure we talk about that too. Thank you. Council Member Kumar, do you have any questions?
No questions, just thanks to the budget committee for their proposal here and their guidance.
Thank you. Councilmember Rovak, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Town Manager, has any resident or guest indicated a desire to speak?
No.
Okay, thank you. Council, are you prepared to make a motion?
I can
Sorry,
make a
my
motion.
laptop just froze up on me, so I'll let somebody else.
I think Councilor Kumar is prepared to make a motion.
I motion to adopt a resolution establishing the American Rescue Plan Act funds will be budgeted for expenditure as part of the town's annual budget process, as recommended by the town budget committee.
Thank you. Is there a second? I saw Heller first. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, it was unanimous. And before I forget, Mr. Town Manager, Mayor Chantry of Garrett Park, I had a conversation with her today, and she requested copies of this adopted resolution.
Okay.
I don't think that's one of our town attorney's clients, so I'm sorry that.
It is, Mr. Mayor, but that's
But
quite
they
all
are
right.
they are your client?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, well then we're saving them money.
That's right.
Okay. The next item is the introduction of the ordinance from the Parks and National Resources Committee, which I will turn over to the town manager to introduce.
Yes, so this again was discussed at the December work session. This essentially, let's see, so essentially changes the process for and criteria for removing and replacing trees within Somerset, and specifies certain certain conditions of permits and certain preferences for the town, such as planting native trees, and certain sizes that the trees that are planted should be. It also prevents any situation where currently in the code, a permit can be granted administratively for fewer than 3 trees. So this creates a cumulative effect where, for example, somebody couldn't request 1 tree be removed and then a month later request another tree. They would be treated this as one removal over a certain time period. As council member Barr mentioned earlier, another or an alternative or additional way to do that would be to look at the cumulative diameter of trees that are removed instead of the raw number of trees that are being requested for removal. I think that more or less covers it at a high level. Perhaps Councilmember Barr would want to expand on that.
Right. I mean, the general background I mentioned at the work session is that they're trying to move away from a strict numbers of trees, tree for tree approach to the quality of the landscaping more generally, and also the quality of the tree. There's a big difference between a giant oak that's 45, 50 inches wide and, you know, a cherry tree 8 inches wide in terms of its effect on the landscape, its effect on wildlife, and its effect on stormwater. So that's really what they're trying to get at throughout the document. The change that I had suggested was because I previously indicated this to Ron, I was upset with the 3 tree, 1 tree distinction still in it, where the mayor approves 1 or 2 trees for removal, but any 3 trees or more go to the council. And that's still got the number of trees in it. And that's not the general tenor of the new language. So I suggested an alternative, which, you know, formally is the sum of the diameters of the trees measured at 4 feet from the base of the trees as the criterion. I had used a 30-inch as my illustration standard. So below 30 inches, the mayor considers 30 inches or above, council considers. And PNRC definitely wants to go that way, but they haven't yet decided on that 30 inches is the best number to use. They're still working through that. So that was why I brought it up at the beginning. So what I suggest is we amend it at this point to put in the language on the sum of the diameters at 4 feet from the base, with a blank for the actual inches we use to separate between the mayor and the council. The one other point I'm going to make is when it goes to the council, it allows for public comment at that point and for the neighbors to know about it. It doesn't happen when the mayor alone is approving it. And so that's why it's an important distinction. So,
And if I may, Robin reminded me of an important detail. He implied this, but I just wanted to explicitly state it for the record that currently in our code, there's no mechanism to require a replanting plan when fewer than 3 trees are being removed. So this would enable the town to require some type of replanting plan, even if it's fewer than 3 trees.
Okay, thank you. And just to refresh everyone's memory, when the motion is made to introduce this ordinance, if Councilor Barr does it, he can amend it when he introduces it. And now I will ask Council President Circo if he has any questions.
No question. I want to thank Robin for really working on this. I think the approach he's developed is elegant.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Barr, did you want to say anything?
no, I've explained what already. So
Okay, thank you. Councilor Heller, do you have any questions?
I was just wondering, I know this is a little question from left field, but how many trees a year do we get a request to take down? Do we know that number or the ballpark of that number?
I did look at that number for the Stormwater Committee. I don't recall what it is offhand. I can either try.
We'll get it for you, so you'll have that information.
I'll make a note and follow up. I can easily find that for you.
Yeah.
For when we
tomorrow.
talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, the issue is a lot of the requests are for diseased or dead trees, which this doesn't change that. It's when they're healthy trees is the big concern.
I think it's a very good question. And I think that when whoever is assigned the article about this introduction, perhaps can include some of that information in the article so that our constituents will understand why it's so necessary to change the code. And do you have any other questions, Councilmember Heller?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kumar.
Just thanks to the PNRC for revitalizing this and taking it across the finish line with Robin and Ron's support. I think this is, I believe, has been in the works for a while and fixes a major loophole in our town code.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Rovak, do you have any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. And now, Councilmember Barr, are you prepared to move the introduction?
Yeah.
Robin, it's
Oh, so
12. It's 12-21-2, I think.
Yeah, right. I propose that we introduce an ordinance to amend chapter 182, which is tree removals. It's resolution number 12-21-2, as Kabir mentioned, as recommended by PNRC. I wish to introduce also an amendment to the draft code as presented by the town attorney to remove the language distinguishing 1 or 2 trees versus 3 trees as a criterion for separation between the mayor and council, and replace that standard with standard based on the sum of the diameters of the trees to be removed being less than a certain number of inches going to the mayor, greater, the same as or greater than those inches going to council. We will allow public input on what that sum should be between now and adoption of the ordinance.
Okay, before I ask for a second, I do want to ask the town attorney how soon he can get this language written so that we can publish the ordinance.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for raising that issue, because I had misunderstood. I thought the proposal was in section 182.3, just to strike the 4 inches or more measured at 4.5 feet above the ground and put a blank there. I didn't understand that we're going to be revising the framework of what applications go to the mayor or council. That's going to require more substantive edits, and generally it's best practice to have that done before introduction so that the council knows what it's voting on to introduce and the public has the exact proposal in hand.
So it sounds like the council's best course of action at this time is to consider a redraft of that ordinance at the work session this month.
I think so, Mr. Mayor, and it could be introduced at that work session.
That, I know that Councilor Kumar was concerned about this, so is that acceptable to you?
My only concern is that we discussed it at the last work session as it's drafted. And so, I'm just wondering, are we revisiting the framework, Robin, entirely, or what's happening?
No,
here?
this is one change, and it's really a change to make the end of it consistent with the rest of the document. But it is, what Ron is saying is correct, that he has to think through it. He's got to read through the whole document, make sure this change is consistent with what is stated in the rest of the document, and that is real.
Well, Councilmember Barr, is there any reason not to introduce it as drafted now and then the amendment could be circulated?
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea, Mr. Mayor. I don't think, changing who reviews applications, the council versus the mayor, I don't think that would be a substantive change that would require reintroduction.
So
That could be.
Councilor Barr, why don't you introduce it as drafted, and then the town attorney you'll work with the town attorney to prepare an amendment that you can talk about at the work session, and then the amendment can be circulated in advance, but it doesn't need 30 days.
All right, happy to do that, no problem.
So that way everybody will be happy. So do you want to restate your motion?
Yeah, right. So I move the introduction of an ordinance to amend Chapter 182 on tree removals. It's resolution number 12-21 to adopt the language as presented by the town attorney and as drafted based on the recommendations of PNRC.
Okay, is there a second? Okay,
Second.
Councilor Kumar seconded. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay.
And
So
Mr.
now,
Mayor, just quickly before we move on, I was able to look up Councilmember Heller's question, and over the last 10 years, we looked through the records and found that about 1,100 trees were removed in Somerset in total. That includes at construction projects as well as individual trees being removed, town trees that were dying, etc. So a lot of those ended up having a tree replacement project associated with them, but that's the total number of tree replacements.
okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Matt.
So before you make the assignment, Mr. President, Mr. Town Attorney, would you be able to have this amendment written by January 15th?
Yes, yeah,
So that we can
absolutely. I'm
publish it.
looking at it now, and as Councilmember Barr said, it's not going to be that difficult. I think the only changes need to be made are in one section. Just changing 1 or 2, 3 trees to, an aggregate of blank caliper. So yeah, yes, Mr. Mayor. by
Okay,
December-
and then
January
also
15th.
another thing, Councilor Barr, is the committee could have a meeting to discuss the amendment that he's drafting.
Yeah, right. They actually have had that meeting, but they've had two meetings so far, and I don't know how many more.
Okay, so whatever you want. But so anyway, Mr. President, who would you like to assign the article to?
I'd like to volunteer Robin if he's up to it.
Yeah, I'm not writing two, but that's okay.
Thank you,
I can
Robin.
take the ADU one off your hands if you want, Robin.
No, it's all right. I got two hands, Matt. No problem.
Thank you, Robin.
But don't you have a new grandchild?
Not quite yet. Coming very soon.
We better get it written before the grandchild comes.
No
Okay.
pressure here.
Okay, is there further discussion? We didn't vote, right? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, everybody voted yes, thank you. The next item, the second to last item is to approve the 2022 Town Council meeting calendar, which for the first time we've included the work sessions because I felt that it's rather than negotiate work sessions every month, it's better if we schedule them all in advance so that people can work their schedules around them. Since I'm so grateful that all council members make these meetings a priority. So with that, Mr. President, do you have any questions about the proposed calendar?
Nope. Thank you for taking the initiative there.
Mr. Councilmember Barr, do you have any questions?
No questions, no.
Councilmember Heller?
Just a couple of things. Number one, on the work sessions, I don't know if you realize it, but February 14th, as in Valentine's Day, is like a religious holiday to some of us. But I'll put it on hold, okay? Just saying. But
But remember, the work session is early.
I know. I'm only teasing, just trying to make you guys laugh. But
I will
anyway,
send you a Valentine.
and I will hold you to it.
I will send you a Valentine.
I realize that June 7th, Shavuot was probably a nod towards me because I do these holidays, but I don't think I'll be here for June 7th either. I kind of like I'm probably not home that week until Thursday. I'm gone for a big celebration.
So
I
are
don't
you-
think I know I won't be around for the 6th, and the 7th is very questionable as well.
well, we'll remember
Please.
it's recorded.
Okay, that's fine with me. I just want to put it out there.
It's recorded and also, as I've done for other council members, I can raise your issue, the materials are, and I can raise your questions.
I don't want you to change it for me. And if
Okay.
Shavuot is a big deal for anybody else, you can put it back to the 6th because I'm not going to be here anyway. But thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
But that's not a big enough holiday for me either. So
Okay. thank
scratch
you.
that one for the future.
Okay. Maybe it is for me, so.
It
maybe
might be, it
somebody
might
else,
be.
but-
And I've just discounted it. I
Okay.
apologize.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kumar, do you have any questions about the?
Probably will, no, by the way, this is great. Thank you for doing this. I was just
Yeah.
quickly checking my calendar. I most likely won't be able to make the March 14th work session, but everything else.
And
works.
again, as we did one time before, I will
Yeah,
work with
yeah,
you and to get your concerns. And if there's any ties, I'll vote your way.
excellent. That should be easy.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Rovak, do you have any questions, Smith?
No, it looks good.
Okay, thank you. Council, Mr. President, you prepared to make a motion?
I move that we adopt the calendar as presented.
Is there a second? I saw Heller. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? And now we will have briefly a manager's report because I'm being deferential to our president about his time.
Sure. So I included the financials for you, so I won't go over those, but feel free to ask me any questions if you do. Just some other notes for you. Today, we all experienced the snowstorm, so had a lot of back and forth with Mulherin about snow removal, the sidewalks. I think the streets certainly looking a lot better, and they're planning to take care of sidewalks this evening. I know they were starting on it prior to this meeting starting. A couple of shakeups with the staff. Enrique retired, and actually I suspect that this ties into Shannon's question actually earlier, but I also had a conversation over the holidays with Wayne, and I expect that he will also be stepping away. So these are two things that we anticipated, especially in Enrique's part. And so I have been working on 2 listings that intend to put out shortly. It's not going to be exactly a 1-for-1 replacement on either of them, but I think an opportunity to be a positive shakeup for our staff and efficiently build out the staff. Just wanted to thank everybody, all the residents, for the holiday donations. Very, very generous. Year after year, the Somerset residents are very generous to the staff donations. And so I know the staff is very grateful for that. So I wanted to extend their thanks to everybody out there. Another topic that came up earlier, so I won't dwell on it too much, but we are expecting at least one new construction project within the next couple of months. Doug and I are planning to have a more extensive sit down tomorrow to talk about how administratively and internally we want to handle those the pre-construction meetings, and also how we can best provide you with recommendations ahead of council meetings. And I'm sure there will be a little bit of a learning curve, and perhaps even further discussion at future work sessions and meetings. But I'm excited for the new ordinance to be into effect, and we'll see how it goes sooner than later. I also have a meeting with Pepco tomorrow to provide updated information on the replacement of streetlights, and that reminds me that I know that Councilmember Rovak had asked for information previously, so I made a note to myself that I'll send that over to you tomorrow. I apologize for the delay in that. As you all know, we have the safety session scheduled for noon on January 20th, which is the same day as the council work session that we just approved. With Omicron and case numbers going up, both the state and Montgomery County are starting up more regular COVID meetings about COVID response locally and at the state level. So I'll be sitting on those a little bit more often again. The records retention is completed except for the pickup. So I at some point will want to schedule, I think, a brief presentation for the council from Donna on everything that she learned and the policies that were implemented as part of that, so you can get a better sense of some of the exciting things that came out of that. And then the last note for you is that spoke briefly with Neil Weinstein today, and he let me know that he will have a draft of LIDC's a final report to the town. He said sometime over the next week. So we're coming to a head on that project as well. And I think that will be informative and a good discussion point for future discussions on that topic as we continue to hone our code and be responsive to that. Otherwise, I'm
Thank you
happy
for
to
that
answer questions.
outstanding report. Council President Circo, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you, Councilmember Barr.
Just a little question on fall through. Barbara Contos, who is actually here, has been concerned about the lights by the pool not coming on with darkness. And I brought it up with Linda. It was probably because the lights had not been changed with the R switch that we had. Did that get completed? Did that follow through happen, and did the lights get adjusted?
I did go down there. Enrique and I went down I guess Christmas Eve. I went over and we adjusted the clock. So I was going to actually ask if anyone has seen them on. It was kind of the timer on that thing down there is a lot different than the timer that's in the town hall for the tennis courts. So
Barbara's
I
got her hand
adjusted.
up. Barbara's got her hand up, but maybe we should let her.
Why don't you do, in the interest of time, why don't you call her tomorrow? We can find out.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions, Councilmember Barr?
Nope.
Thank you. Councilmember Heller.
I have one question, and I don't know if I'm alone in this, but on the budget, I read through the whole budget, and I admit I don't understand it. And I don't know if I'm alone in that. And if I am, I'm happy to call Phil and see if I should sit down and talk to him and he can explain it to me. But if I am not alone, then maybe we should put something together. That's my question. Does
Well,
anyone else here not understand it?
We do something unique here, which is that we have hearings before the budget's introduced.
Right.
And we start in what, Matt, March?
Yeah, yep.
So it's practically a tutorial on the budget.
Okay. I can wait.
So
And one of the things we actually talked about last year, Debbie, which we'll do for the first time this year, is I was going to write up each budget line and give even just a one sentence explanation on what each one was for you, so that
That's not what I don't understand. I just don't understand these numbers, so, but maybe if I attend
well, I'm
all
glad
these,
you're doing your pre-homework.
you like that, huh? But
And that's why we go over the budget basically line by line. You'll be able
okay,
to.
I can wait. I just, as long as there's a mechanism, I just want
Yeah.
to make sure I got it.
There
Okay,
is. We had wanted to do that in the orientation, but we ran out of time.
right.
But that's
Okay.
why that's one of my favorite accomplishments as mayor, is that we really spend a lot of time on the budget before it's introduced.
Okay, good.
So, and we painstakingly go over line by line and get everybody's question answered, because it's the most important thing that the council does.
All right, well, thank you.
Did you have any other questions?
No.
Okay, Councilmember Kumar.
Thanks again, Matt, for a great report, and welcome back from break. One quick question was the Attainable Housing information session. It'd be great to get an update on when we are planning that and how you're thinking about that. I think that was one of the ones that we were hoping to organize at some point, I think, in this month or next month.
We were hoping that I think that I had said last year that we would have that session even before the document
Yeah,
was produced by the planning
yes,
staff, which remember, I got that information from the planning board chair that it would not be in December, and of course it wasn't in December.
yes.
But yes, we will get right on that. We will get on that, Councilor Kumar, because the council requested with your initiative that we have that, so we get a jump start.
Yeah,
So we will, I will discuss that with the council president, our leadership meeting next week.
Thank you.
Did you have any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Rovak.
I was just wondering for the session with Chief Goldstein on the 20th, do we have, are we pre-sending questions to him? And if so, do we know what those questions are or?
Okay, excellent. I was going to bring that up before we, so I'm delighted to announce, which you all know, that Kumar Vaswani has agreed and been confirmed tonight by you to chair the Public Safety Committee. It's very exciting, and we also applaud Bruce Tully for his, he will be continuing as a major resource person. So we will be working with, we will be orienting the new chair to the protocols, and I would like Councilor Rovak to attend that, and whoever else is the liaison to that committee. I forget who the second is. And then I'm working with, I'm going to be working with you, Councilor Rovak, and Assistant Chief D. Howard, so that we will provide all the questions, some of the major questions, to the chief, so he will, and his staff. Actually, the meeting is going to be, I'm not even sure how long the chief will be there, but the operation, all the people that can answer your questions will be there. And yes, we will be providing a lot of them in advance, so they'll be able to answer them right then. And we've also invited, of course, the chief of the Bethesda Fire Department. The answer is yes, and you will be heavily involved with the advanced work since you're the liaison. Who is the alternate on public safety? Is there one?
There is, sure.
And if so, you're invited to join us if you have the time.
Sorry,
Did you have any other questions, Councilor Rovak?
No, the only, actually I do. And this has probably been over. Matt, do we know for the pickleball pilot program that is going on, do we know the anticipated start of the new pickleball season?
Yeah, we had talked about March as a
Okay.
as a start date for it.
Okay, great. I've been getting a lot of questions.
Well, perhaps, I think there appears to be a little unofficial committee that's working, and I think that they are going to help Matt roll this out. But you're welcome to godmother it, Councilor Rovak, especially since you're right there.
Yeah, well, I'm getting a lot of questions from the tennis committee, which I am the liaison. So
Oh, okay.
that's not a conflict of interest between the
Okay,
two
no,
committees.
I don't think so. Okay, good. Okay, excellent. I know
You
you'll
can
be
handle it.
You'll be a good negotiator. Okay, thank you. So I was just going to say one thing before we adjourn. Yes, remember to come January 20th at noon to the oversight hearing, and I'm delighted about the new leadership of the committee. I'm also very pleased with the revenue committee, which is going to start meeting soon, and we have identified some members, and also the traffic committee is being recharged, and we have 3 outstanding chairs for those committees. So hopefully there'll be a lot of great recommendations coming forward this year. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, everyone, and we will see you on January 20th. And don't
Happy
forget.
New Year's.
Happy New Year, everybody.
deadline of
Happy New Year.
New Year.
Good night, everyone.